So that means, so as Jan said, I teach. So to keep me on task, I just started my timer because I've been given my time. And the other bonus is that directly following this, I'm going to lunch with family and friends. So that's my motivation to keep on task. So thank you for asking me to be here. I believe it was Jan that recommended me, and I've been in contact with Elizabeth to coordinate this. And my commute here was really long. Literally, we live in the alley, 4 houses away from your building. So I will be billing for my travel time and fuel on my shoes to get here. All right, so there you go. I think I'm funny. So yeah, so who am I? For the purposes of what I'm going to present to you today, I'm going to talk about what I like to say are paths to recovery from substance use disorders. You might know the term differently because you'll hear the term addiction a lot. I talk differently about substance use disorders because one of the first things that I like to educate people on is, number one, substance use disorders are a health condition. Again, substance use disorders are a health condition. They are not a criminal justice condition. But the unfortunate reality is, since about the 1940s, there's a little thing called the drug war. And that's how this health condition has been treated. There's been a lot of positive movement away from that, but it's ebbed and flows over the years. And no matter which side of the political spectrum you're on, whether Democrat or Republican, both sides have continued to fuel the drug war. We have seen a lot of positive movement over the last 20 years with multiple administrations, where the reality has set in that we are not going to arrest our way out of this problem. A fact, based on the research, is that we have just as much or more drugs on the streets today than we did in the 1940s when the drug war started. And the whole purpose of the drug war was to do what? Get drugs off the street. So we know now, years later, that after spending trillions of dollars and countless lives lost, that we've got to change how we address this issue. So a little bit about who I am. My name's David Douglas. I've been in Ellensburg now for over 20 years. I went over 20 years in April, and I'm originally from the Pierce County area. I like to say that I was raised, it was just the reality, by a single mom, raising 4 of us in the late 60s, 70s, and I would have graduated high school in 1985. I dropped out, got my GED, and went in the military at the young age of 17. But raised in a pretty chaotic environment. Mom doing the best she knew how, worked 2 and 3 jobs in the restaurant industry. That's what we were raised in. She was either a waitress or a bartender. We managed apartments and motels. We lived in Ocean Shores for a couple of years in the early mid 70s. But moving is what we did. That is what we did when I was young. And so for purposes of time, and I'm watching my stopwatch, this actually transitioned, because it's what I was taught, it's what I knew, into my adulthood. I moved a lot as a young adult in my 20s and into my 30s. My issues with substances started really young. I started drinking and smoking marijuana at about the age of 12 years old, pretty regularly, what I like to say of my own volition, of my own decision making. I had substance use earlier. I had an older brother who gave me alcohol and who gave me drugs, but that wasn't really my choice. My choice started when I was about 12 years old. I was, some understand this term. You've heard the term functional alcoholic. Those have heard that term. I was a fairly functional alcoholic for my late teens, through my time in the military, where in the military, drinking's pretty accepted, right? So that actually fueled my alcoholism in many ways. I got out of the military. I was a blue collar worker for the majority of my life and stayed fairly functional with alcohol, marijuana, and cigarettes. I even put cigarettes in there until I met crack cocaine when I was about 24 years old. That was when I went to treatment for the very first time. For the first time in my life, I started learning the reasons I turned to substances. In many cases for myself, and I know many others who end up with a substance use disorder, addiction, they're really just numbing the pain. And I had a lot of trauma as a child and even as a young adult. So a lot of my substance use was really to just numb that pain. So I started addressing those issues. I later I like to say met methamphetamines in the mid 90s. And it was some of the darkest periods of my life. I was in and out of jail in my late 20s and kind of came to, so to speak. My sister bailed me out of jail when I was 28, 29 years old at a Pierce County jail, which I was a frequent flyer in and out of jail. And that was really when my shift happened, where I went to treatment again, because keep in mind, many people need treatment multiple times. Just like any other health condition, you don't stop treating it. You keep treating it until something clicks. So this is something I always like to educate people on. Any opportunity for someone to get help, let's get them help. I don't care if they've been to treatment 1 time or 10 times. All of those opportunities to get treatment and help are good. So I navigated a world where I have been in recovery now since March 25th of 2007. I returned to use in 2006 right here in this town. It didn't go well for me, so I returned to a life in recovery. I like to say, jokingly but seriously, I'm highly educated. And I say that for this purposes of this, because I've done a ton of research in this arena, and I do what I call a lot of myth busting. The idea that someone has to hit rock bottom before they will get help, that myth has to die. Literally, people die because of that mindset, right? The second someone says, I want help, let's get them some help. The idea that, well, they've already been to treatment, why would we do it again? Why wouldn't you do it again, right? Same thing with any other medical condition if you need treatment. So I live and work in this community, and in this arena, Elizabeth, I sent you an email, and you can throw that up on the screen at the end, or I'm going to leave some of these cards here. One of the current areas I work in, we've started a program with the Ellensburg Police Department. I'm now a member of the Ellensburg Police Department. Yeah, this guy who I just told you used to be in and out of jail, and I don't mind sharing because it's part of my story. Until 2010, I was a convicted felon. I was able to go back to the courts because I've had access to resources. I have this amazing life today. What are those resources? Treatment, counseling, physicians, education, housing, employment. I just listed, I think, 7 areas that we as a community must help people in early recovery have access to, right? Many people get in early recovery, they come back to Ellensburg and they don't have housing, opportunities for employment, access to healthcare, access to counseling. I was fortunate to have access to those. So I was able to go back to the courts, have my record expunged. I'm no longer a convicted felon. I don't have to identify that ever unless I choose to. Long story short, last fall, I started working with Captain Dan Hansberry at the police department, and we have started now a program to help people find a path to recovery rather than a path to a jail cell, right? Let's get them recovery, resources, and help. And so that's a project I've just started. Now, all of the officers in the police department have my phone number, and they can call me anytime. If they run into an individual on the street, which they see people, which I was in that category, that need access to resources, they can hand them my phone number or any of the other phone numbers on this card and say, hey, let's try to find you resources. It's another myth that law enforcement doesn't want to help in this area, that they just want to throw people in jail. Law enforcement will be some of the first people to tell you that what we're doing isn't working. So the Ellensburg Police Department has really grasped onto this program to help people find a path to recovery. I've also been a counselor in this arena in outpatient settings as a drug and alcohol counselor. My son, who's also a person in recovery, is a counselor in an all-male inpatient treatment center where this week on Tuesday, I get to go in person. I do lectures in treatment centers helping other individuals, male and female, but this just happens to be an all-male treatment center, find their own path to recovery. Just for purposes of time, I want to also send the message loud and clear. I'm going to pause so everyone looks up at the screen, and here's what I have to say. There is more than one way to get to and stay in recovery. I'm going to repeat that again. There is more than one way to get to and stay in recovery. What am I talking about? What I'm talking about is this. I have friends right here in this community who had significant drug and alcohol issues and have never been to treatment. They used their church as their path to recovery. They used their faith only as their path to recovery. There are other individuals who have went to treatment and they enjoy the path of the 12-step programs, whether it's NA, AA, CA, whatever anonymous program, that works for them. There are other individuals who I just happen to be going to lunch with right after this, who have had significant issues with drug and alcohol, went to treatment, and they use their exercise program as their path to recovery. There is no one way to get to and stay in recovery. That's a myth, and that has to die. And that's the beautiful thing that I'm seeing happen in communities like ours and others, is that the treatment centers and healthcare organizations who provide services in this arena is that they're opening their minds. I truly, really appreciated your message at the beginning, and I know that's what this organization is about having an open mind, right? So we're starting to see treatment centers go, yeah, we can't just say, and this is what happens. We can't just say, if an individual comes to our treatment center and we're providing one method of treatment, there are more than one method and one path to recovery, and they leave and it doesn't work for them, and they return to use, you might know it as relapse. I don't use that word because there's a lot of stigma surrounding this whole arena. So the language I use is different. If they return to use and then they come back to that same treatment center, which may be the only option they have, what does the treatment center say? You must not want it bad enough. Wait a second. So they came to treatment. They only got one method of treatment. Imagine going to your doctor. Here's how it happens. Imagine going to your doctor and your doctor gives you a medication or a treatment method, and it doesn't work for that health condition. What would you do? You'd say, doctor, let's try something different. This is what I'm talking about. We need to stop doing that with this. Let's try different ways of treating it. Some of you might have heard of, and I'm almost done, and I emailed Elizabeth the resource list, which has my phone number on it, and you can hand my phone number out. I'll leave a few of these cards here. I'm happy to sit down and talk with anyone about this. But there's controversy right now around what's called medication-assisted treatment. How many of you have heard of medication-assisted treatment? And there are some in this arena who say, that's not recovery. That's trading a drug for a drug. Well, I'm going to tell you something. That's garbage. And that needs to stop. Because myself, I have suffered greatly in my time with depression and anxiety. And I absolutely used medication to help manage that condition. Same thing with medication-assisted treatment. If it can help someone, and this is my close, if it can help someone improve their life, then it's working, and that's recovery. And what am I talking about? If someone's able to keep a job, if someone's able to mend their family relationships, if someone's able to become an integral member of their community again, who am I to say that recovery's not working? So that's what I'm all about. What your message about at the beginning was, is being open-minded in this arena. There are a lot of myths in this arena, and I'm kind of a myth buster in that we need to find paths that work for individuals. Thank you for letting me be here. I enjoyed my time. And again, I'm going to leave a few of these cards, and my number was on the screen. Shoot me a message or an email or a call, and I'm happy to sit down and talk to you about this amazingly important arena. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Wow.